Chapter 14, Anger. Bristol barely slept after her and Lucy's night in the in-between. Not only was she heartbroken about breaking Madame Weatherbury's trust, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the witch hunters who had tried to kill them. Bristol had nightmares all night about dodging the men's crossbows. Every 20 minutes or so, she awoke in a panic and had to remind herself she was out of the forest and safe in her bed at the academy. Although terrifying, the encounter wasn't a complete surprise. Bristol knew the world was filled with people who despised magic and wanted to harm members of the magical community. But until last night, she had never seen the hatred with her own eyes. It was her first exposure to a very ugly side of humanity, and now that she had witnessed it, Bristol would never think of humankind in the same way again. The morning after her restless night, there was a knock on Bristol's bedroom door, and Tangerina poked her head inside. "Bristol," she said, "Madame Weatherbury wants to see you in her office." Facing another wave of the fairy's extreme disappointment was the last thing Bristol wanted to do, but she climbed down the floating staircase to her teacher's office anyway. When she arrived, Madame Weatherbury's wooden door was opened a crack, and she could see her teacher standing behind her glass desk, gazing through the window at the sparkling ocean. Bristol took a deep breath, braced herself for whatever was about to happen, and lightly tapped on the door. "Madame Weatherbury?" she asked. "Tangerina said you wanted to see me." As soon as the fairy turned around, Bristol could tell she was in a much better mood than the night before. She could still see that Madame Weatherbury's journey had taken an obvious toll on her. There were still bags under her eyes. Her hair was still gray at the temples, and gloves still covered both of her arms. But the teacher's cheerful spirits had returned. "Hello, dear," she said. "Please come in and have a seat." Bristol stepped into the office, closed the wooden doors behind her, and sat down across from Madame Weatherbury at the desk. "I owe you a very big apology," the fairy said. "I was utterly exhausted when I arrived last night, and I completely overreacted when I saw you and Lucy outside the academy. Tangerina spoke to me this morning and said the entire ordeal was her fault. She said Lucy tried to run away after they exchanged some hurtful comments, and that you went into the forest to find Lucy. What you did was brave and selfless, and you didn't deserve such a harsh scolding. I hope you can forgive me." Bristol sighed with relief and sank into her chair. "You have no idea how glad I am to hear that," she said. "Of course I forgive you, Madame Weatherbury. I imagine the last couple of days have been grueling for you. It must have been very difficult, visiting your sick friend. How is she doing?" Bristol purposefully brought up the topic in hopes of learning more about the northern conflict. Now that Madame Weatherbury had returned, Bristol wondered if her teacher and the witches had succeeded in bringing the conflict to an end. Unfortunately, Madame Weatherbury only elaborated on her original story. "She's not well, I'm afraid," Madame Weatherbury said. "But she's a fighter." "What's her name?" Bristol asked. Madame Weatherbury went quiet, and Bristol assumed she needed time to make up a name for her fake friend. "It's Queenie," the fairy said. "We've known each other our entire lives. She's battling a terrible disease that grows stronger every day, and it won't be long until it consumes her. Although it doesn't excuse my behavior, I hope that explains why I was so distressed last night. It's very hard watching someone you love in so much pain." Even though Bristol knew the real reason Madame Weatherbury had left the academy, the fairy was very convincing as she spoke about her sick friend. Bristol questioned if there was more honesty to her teacher's words than she realized. Perhaps Queenie and the woman Madame Weatherbury was afraid to face in the northern conflict were the same person. Or perhaps the disease her friend was battling was the conflict itself. As Bristol searched for the truth in her teacher's eyes, she noticed a dark, mark peeking out from under her new glove. "Is that a bruise on your arm?" Bristol asked. "Did someone hurt you?" Madam Weatherbury glanced at her right arm and quickly pulled the glove over the exposed injury. "Oh, that's nothing," the fairy deflected the question. "Just a little mark I received while caring for Queenie. Poor dear hates being mothered and doesn't know her own strength. I didn't want anyone to worry, so I covered it with a glove, but that's enough about all that." Bristol could tell Madam Weatherbury was eager to change the subject, so she didn't inquire any further into the matter. "Now moving on," the fairy said. "The main reason I called you here was to see how you're feeling. I wanted to speak with you and Lucy individually to assure you both that, regardless of what lurks in the in-between, you're very safe within the perimeters of this academy. Still, I'm sure last night's events were traumatic for you." "It was a brutal dose of reality," Bristol said. "I've always known the world hated people like us, but I never thought someone would actually want to hurt me. It all feels so personal now." "Everyone thinks they're immune to discrimination until it happens to them," Madam Weatherbury said. "It only takes one tragic event to change your perspective forever." Bristol nodded. "Last night, those men spoke to us like we were objects without feelings or souls. We pleaded for our lives and told them they were making a mistake, but they didn't even flinch. And although we did nothing wrong, they acted like we, well, I don't know how to say it. Like you deserve to be punished simply for existing," Madam Weatherbury said. "Exactly," Bristol said. "Thank God that knight showed up when he did, otherwise we would have been killed." "His name is Horrence," Madam Weatherbury said, "and believe me, my gratitude to him knows no bounds. He's rescued me from countless episodes of peril." "Who is he?" Bristol asked. "Is he even human?" "Not anymore," Madam Weatherbury said. "Many years ago, Horrence was a commander in the Northern Kingdom's army. Along his travels, Horrence had the misfortune of falling in love with a witch. The witch used to own a great deal of land in this area, including the grounds that our academy was built on. Naturally, such a relationship was forbidden, so for over a decade, Horrence and the witch carried on a secret affair. When Horrence's soldiers discovered the relationship, the men betrayed their commander. They burned Horrence at the stake and forced the witch to watch it happen." "That's terrible," Bristol said. "As you can imagine, the witch was devastated," Madam Weatherbury continued. "To ease her broken heart, the witch conjured one of the darkest spells in witchcraft to bring Horrence back to life. However, there are certain spells that are so ghastly they should never be performed, and the witch died in the process. Horrence returned to life as a dark and unnatural being, a shell of the man he once was. Now he's doomed to roam the witch's property for eternity, and he spends his time saving others from suffering an untimely demise like his own." The tragic story made Bristol so angry her eyes welled. "They just wanted to be together," she said. "Why did humankind have to tear them apart? I'll never understand why the world hates a community that just wants to be loved and accepted. I'll never understand why people are so cruel to us." "It's not about the prey, it's about the hunt," Madam Weatherbury said. "Humankind has always needed something to hate and fear to unite them. After all, if they had nothing to conquer and triumph over, they'd have nothing to fuel their sense of superiority. And some men would destroy the world for an ounce of self-worth. But that doesn't mean humanity is a lost cause. As I told Emeralda in the coal mine, this academy could produce the examples that inspire humankind to change their hateful ways." Bristol shook her head and stared at her teacher in disbelief. "I don't get it," she said. "After everything you've been through, how do you manage to stay so optimistic? Why aren't you angry all the time?" Madam Weatherbury went quiet as she thought about Bristol's question. And then a confident smile grew on her face. "Because we're the lucky ones," she said. "To fight for love and acceptance is to know love and acceptance. And anyone who actively tries to steal these qualities from others is admitting they've never known love at all. The people who want to hate and hurt us are so deprived of compassion, they believe the only way to fill the voids in their hearts is to create voids in the hearts of others. So I render them powerless by refusing to accept their voids." Bristol let out a deep sigh and looked hopelessly to the floor. "It's a nice philosophy," she said. "It just seems easier said than done." Madam Weatherbury reached across her desk and squeezed Bristol's hand. "We must pity the people who choose to hate, Bristol," she said. "Their lives will never be as meaningful as the lives filled with love." Tensions between Lucy and Tangerina were at a record high. The girls spent all morning exchanging dirty looks without saying a word to each other, as if they were playing a vindictive game of catch. Their childish feud carried on into the early afternoon and frustrated everyone to no end. Finally, Bristol decided enough was enough and devised a plan to end the dispute. After lunch, she invited all her classmates to her bedroom. "Is this an intervention?" Esmeralda asked. "Sort of," Bristol said. "I've asked you all here so we can settle things between Lucy and Tangerina once and for all." "Good luck," Skylene said. "You're more likely to settle things between a squid and a whale." Bristol ignored the remark and stuck to her plan. "As everyone knows, Lucy has been struggling with her magic," she said. "Due to the strange and peculiar ways her abilities manifest, there's a possibility that Lucy is a witch. Because of this, Lucy has lost all self-confidence, and Tangerina has gone out of her way to make Lucy feel like she doesn't belong at our academy. It appears there will be no peace for anyone until we have an answer, so we're going to prove whether Lucy is a fairy or a witch right now." Everyone went stiff and nervously glanced at Lucy. "How are we going to prove that?" Xanthus asked. "The same way I discovered my own magical abilities," Bristol said. "We're going to have Lucy recite an incantation for witchcraft and an incantation for magic and see which one of her powers responds to." Bristol searched her bookshelves and retrieved her copy of Madam Weatherbury's The Truth About Magic. She opened the book to the page with the first incantation and handed it to Lucy, but her friend didn't accept it. Lucy looked down at the text and gulped in fear, like it contained the results of a serious medical examination. "I don't think I should do this," she said. "Maybe not knowing is the better option?" "Lucy, you're going to find out eventually," Bristol said. "The sooner we know, the sooner we can plan for it. Now read the text aloud so the rest of us can go on with our lives." With shaky hands, Lucy took the book from Bristol, set it on the floor, and knelt beside it. She paused for a couple of seconds to build up courage, then let out a deep breath and reluctantly recited the ancient incantation for witchcraft. All her classmates stepped closer and hovered over her while she read. "Akune, aknun, akele, enama, talmune, talmun, aktele, aknamun." And as soon as she was finished, Lucy covered her eyes with both hands in anticipation of something dreadful occurring. The others were also convinced the incantation would work, and they anxiously looked around the room, but nothing happened. They waited for 5 whole minutes, but Bristol's bedroom remained exactly the same. "It must be terrible if you're all being this quiet," Lucy exclaimed. "Did all of Bristol's books turn into killer crabs? Did Skylene turn into steam? Did Xanthus turn inside out? Did Esmeralda disappear? Did Tangerina multiply? Just tell me already." "Lucy, everything is fine," Bristol said. "Nothing happened." Lucy didn't believe her and peeked through her fingers to see for herself. She was shocked to find that nothing foul or grotesque had appeared or taken place. "This can't be right," she said. Are you sure this incantation works? There must be a typo. Read the next one to be sure, Bristol said. Lucy turned the book to the next page and read the ancient incantation for magic. El sune el knun akele anama delmune dalmun oktele oknamon. When nothing happened for a second time, Bristol could feel her classmates starting to doubt the incantations in The Truth About Magic. However, after a few moments, everyone looked around the bedroom in amazement. Slowly but surely, thousands and thousands of weeds started growing out of Bristol's bookshelves and then quickly spread across the floor and ceiling. Holy plot twist, Lucy said to herself. I'm a freaking fairy? Everyone was floored by the discovery, but no one was more astonished than Lucy herself. She kept rubbing her eyes to make sure they weren't playing tricks on her, but the weeds did not disappear. Bristol beamed at her friend with a proud smile. Congratulations, Lucy and Tangerina. You're both wrong, Bristol said. Now that we have confirmation that we're all on the same team, do the two of you have anything you would like to say to each other? To everyone's surprise, Tangerina swallowed her pride and approached Lucy to make amends. Lucy, although all evidence pointed to you being a witch, I'm sorry for making you feel like one, she said. I hope you'll forgive me, and I'll try my best to make you feel welcome at this academy. That was very nice, Tangerina, Bristol said. Lucy, is there something you would like to say to Tangerina? Sure is, Lucy said. For someone with so much honey, you sure spread a lot of vinegar. Lucy! And, Lucy continued, I'm sorry for all the hurtful yet witty things I said to you. From now on, I'll treat you like a member of my family, and all my insults will be meant with love. Tangerina shrugged. That works for me, she said. The girls shook hands, and everyone felt the tension lift between them. You see, this is how it should be, Bristol told the room. As Lucy and I were reminded last night, there are enough people in this world who hate us and want to harm us. We shouldn't be fighting with each other, too. Before we leave, I want the 6 of us to make a pact. Let's promise to always encourage, support, and protect one another, no matter who or what tries to tear us apart. According to the smiles on her classmates' faces, Bristol could tell there were no objections to her idea, only enthusiasm for it. Lucy reached into her jumpsuit, pulled out a pocket knife, and started cutting the palm of her hand with its small blade. The sight of her blood made the others scream. Oh my God, Lucy! Tangerina yelled. What the heck are you doing? What? Lucy said innocently. We're not making a blood pact? A verbal pact is good enough for me, Bristol said. Oh, sorry, Lucy said. I misinterpreted that one. Back to you, Bristol. Lucy put her pocket knife away and wiped the blood onto her pants. So we're all in agreement? Bristol asked. We promise to look out for one another, to help one another succeed, and to inspire one another along the way. She put her hand in the center of the group, and one by one her classmates placed their hands on top of hers. I promise, Emeralda said. Me too, Xanthus said. Me 3, Skylene said. I promise too, Tangerina said. So do I, Lucy said. Great, Bristol said. Now everyone help me get rid of all of these weeds.